A visitor from another solar system just flew past our sun, and scientists say it might be older than the sun itself. It has been traveling through the galaxy for billions of years, long before Earth existed, long before our sun ignited, long before life, as we know it, began anywhere. And in the final months of last year, humanity's most powerful telescope turned its eye toward this ancient wanderer and captured something nobody expected. This is the story of 3I Atlas, and by the end of this video, you will understand why astronomers around the world are calling this one of the most important discoveries in modern space science. In the next few minutes, we are going to break down everything scientists have found. You will learn what this object is, why it traveled here from outside our solar system, what James Webb detected hidden inside it, and why some of those findings genuinely surprised the research team studying it. We will also look at how this discovery connects to older interstellar visitors. And we will address the biggest rumor spreading online, the idea that this could be something artificial. Stick around, because the real explanation is even stranger than the myth. Before we go further, let's make sure everyone is on the same page, because this story only makes sense once you understand a few basic ideas. Our solar system is the region of space around our sun. It includes 8 planets, moons, asteroids, comets, and smaller icy bodies, held in place by the sun's gravity. Everything inside this region formed together out of the same cloud of gas and dust roughly 4.5 billion years ago. Because of that shared origin, almost everything we find inside our solar system tends to share similar chemistry, similar formation patterns, and similar histories. Now imagine something that did not form here. Something born around a completely different star in a completely different region of the galaxy, possibly billions of years before our own sun even existed. If that object drifted close enough to be captured by our telescopes as it passed through, we would call it an interstellar object. These are visitors from outside our solar system, and they are almost unimaginably rare to detect. It also helps to understand the difference between an asteroid and a comet, since both terms get used constantly in coverage of these objects. Asteroids are generally rocky bodies with very little ice, and they tend to stay solid even when they get close to the sun. Comets, on the other hand, are packed with frozen material, mostly water ice mixed with frozen gases and dust. When a comet gets close enough to a star, that heat begins to warm the ice, turning it directly into gas. This creates a glowing cloud around the comet called a coma, and often a long tail that stretches away from the object. That difference matters here, because the visitor we are discussing today behaves like a comet, releasing gas as it warms, but it is not from our solar system at all. There is one more idea worth understanding before we continue, and that is orbit shape. Almost everything that belongs to our solar system, planets, most comets, and most asteroids, travels in a closed loop around the sun, looping back again and again over years, decades, or centuries. Interstellar objects do the opposite. They move on what scientists call a hyperbolic path, meaning they are not gravitationally bound to the sun at all. They swing in from deep space, curve around the sun exactly once because of its gravity, and then fly back out into the galaxy, never to return. In simple terms, it is an object passing through our solar system a single time, on a journey that began long before we existed and will continue long after this brief visit is over. To understand why the current discovery is such a big deal, we need to go back and look at what came before it. The first confirmed interstellar object ever detected was spotted in 2017. Astronomers named it Oumuamua, and it caused an immediate sensation. It was elongated, tumbling strangely through space, and showed almost none of the usual signs of a comet, no obvious coma, no clear tail, just a strange, fast-moving shape that came from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Because it behaved so differently from anything studied before, theories about its nature multiplied rapidly, including speculation that it might not be natural at all. Then, in 2019, a second interstellar visitor appeared. This one, named Borisov, behaved much more like a typical comet, complete with a visible coma and tail. It gave scientists their first real chance to study the chemistry of a body formed around another star, offering reassurance that not every interstellar visitor would be as mysterious as Oumuamua. But both encounters left major problems unsolved. Oumuamua was gone before telescopes could gather enough detailed data, and Borisov moved too quickly and too far away for a truly close study. Scientists were left with incomplete pictures, tantalizing but limited. They knew interstellar objects existed and might hold clues about how other star systems form planets, but they still lacked the kind of detailed chemical fingerprint that could unlock those secrets. Then everything changed. On the 1st of July, 2025, a telescope system called ATLAS, short for the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, picked up a faint moving object in the night sky. Follow-up observations quickly confirmed what astronomers had been waiting years for. This was not a solar system object. Its trajectory, incoming speed, and path all pointed to one conclusion. This was the third confirmed interstellar object ever recorded, given the name 3I Atlas. Unlike its predecessors, this object arrived on a trajectory that would keep it observable for months, giving astronomers an unprecedented opportunity. Ground-based observatories began tracking it immediately. Space telescopes, including Hubble, captured detailed images as it approached the inner solar system. By October, even NASA's Mars orbiters caught glimpses of it passing through that region of space. As 3I Atlas approached its closest point to the Sun in late 2025, its icy surface began to warm dramatically. This triggered the release of gas and dust, forming a bright glowing coma around the nucleus, exactly the activity that makes a comet easier to study. Researchers now had a genuine chance to examine the composition of a body formed around a star that is not our own. So why does this particular object matter so much? It is not simply a matter of being old. What makes 3I Atlas extraordinary is a combination of factors that, together, place it in a category of its own. Based on its motion through the galaxy before it ever reached our solar system, researchers studying its kinematics concluded that it likely originated from what is known as the galactic thick disk, an older population of stars that formed during an intense period of star formation many billions of years ago, sometimes referred to as the galaxy's cosmic noon. Estimates place the object's age at somewhere around 10 billion years, which would make it the oldest comet ever studied by humanity. For comparison, our own solar system is roughly 4.5 billion years old. If these estimates hold up, this visitor could be more than twice as old as the Sun itself. It also stands out because of how much detailed data scientists were able to collect. Unlike Oumuamua, which vanished before we could truly study it, 3I Atlas remained observable long enough for multiple major instruments to examine it in detail. That combination, extreme age and extensive observability, is what sets this discovery apart from every interstellar visitor before it. Think about it this way. Oumuamua gave scientists a mysterious shape but almost no chemistry. Borisov gave scientists real chemistry but only a partial, distant look. 3I Atlas gave scientists both a long observation window and rich, detailed chemical data gathered by several of the most advanced instruments ever built. It is the oldest of the three, the most chemically unusual of the three, and by far the most thoroughly documented of the three. When researchers talk about this object being a once-in-a-generation opportunity, this is exactly what they mean. Now let's get into the heart of the story, because this is where things get genuinely fascinating. As 3I Atlas moved away from the Sun after its closest approach, astronomers turned NASA's James Webb Space Telescope toward it. Using an instrument called NIR-SPEC, short for near-infrared spectrograph, researchers were able to map out the specific chemical signature of the gas surrounding the comet. Think of this like taking a chemical fingerprint of the object, a unique pattern of light that reveals exactly what elements and molecules are present without ever needing to physically touch it. What they found was striking. The comet showed unusual ratios of carbon and a rare form of hydrogen called deuterium, sometimes nicknamed heavy hydrogen, ratios that do not match what we typically see in solar system comets. According to Martin Cordner, an astrochemist involved in the research, this was a unique opportunity to study an object that likely predates our Sun and solar system entirely. But the story did not stop there. Scientists were not expecting what came next. In mid and late December, roughly 2 months after the comet's closest approach to the Sun, Webb was pointed toward 3I Atlas again, this time using a different instrument, the mid-infrared instrument, known as MIRI. And this is where the surprise happened. For the first time ever recorded on an interstellar object, Webb detected methane gas escaping from the comet. Methane is an extremely volatile substance, meaning it turns from solid ice into gas very easily, even at relatively low temperatures. Because of that, scientists had expected any methane inside the comet to have already boiled away early on, right as the object first began warming near the Sun. Instead, the methane appeared later than expected, which told researchers something important. It had likely been buried beneath the surface, protected from the Sun's heat, until it warmed enough to reach those deeper, icy layers. This is where the story becomes even more incredible. The amount of methane detected relative to water was surprisingly high, with very few comparable examples found anywhere in our own solar system. At the same time, the same observations confirmed something researchers had already suspected. 3I Atlas was unusually rich in carbon dioxide, releasing far more of it relative to water than typical solar system comets do. According to scientists at the European Space Agency, both of these findings point toward a very different formation environment and chemistry than the vast majority of comets that formed right here in our own solar system. In simple terms, this object was built from different ingredients, mixed in a different ratio, under different conditions, around a completely different star. Let's slow down for a moment and walk through exactly how scientists reached that conclusion, because the process itself tells you a lot about how real discoveries are actually made. To answer it, Webb's MIRI instrument observed the comet on 2 separate occasions, once in mid-December and again in late December, as it continued moving away from the Sun. Each observation captured a full spectrum, essentially a rainbow of light spread out and analyzed piece by piece, with each gas leaving its own distinct signature within that spectrum. The evidence came back as a set of very specific chemical signals. Water vapor appeared spread widely around the comet, mostly because it was escaping from icy grains scattered throughout the coma. Carbon dioxide and methane, however, appeared far more concentrated near the comet's actual nucleus, meaning those gases were escaping directly from the solid body itself, rather than from loose material drifting nearby. The result surprised the research team in a very specific way. Methane should have appeared early, right when the comet was closest to the Sun and hottest, since it turns to gas so easily. Instead, it showed up later after the comet had already begun cooling again. That delay only makes sense if the methane had been trapped and insulated beneath layers of tougher, less volatile ice, only reaching the surface once heat had time to travel deeper into the nucleus. And here's what that means. A layered structure like that tells scientists this comet has likely remained largely unchanged since the moment it formed, billions of years ago, around a star that no longer exists in any form we could recognize. It is, in a very real sense, frozen history. But the investigation did not stop with methane and carbon dioxide. Scientists wanted to know what else this comet might reveal, so they went back even further, to data gathered months earlier. The question this time involved deuterium, that rare heavy form of hydrogen mentioned earlier. Researchers wanted to know whether the ratio of deuterium to regular hydrogen in this comet's water matched what we typically see in our own solar system's comets. Using Webb's NIR spec instrument back in August, before the comet had even reached its closest approach to the Sun, scientists mapped out detailed chemical ratios, including carbon and deuterium levels locked inside the comet's water ice. The evidence showed ratios that did not match typical solar system comets at all. These proportions pointed toward formation conditions, unlike anything commonly found closer to our own Sun. The result, according to researchers, suggested this object may have formed in an environment considerably colder and stranger than the regions where our own solar system's comets took shape. And the meaning behind that discovery is significant. It suggests that this comet was not just old, but built somewhere fundamentally different from anywhere we have ever studied directly, reinforcing the idea that it came from an entirely separate stellar neighborhood, shaped by entirely different conditions, long before our Sun ever existed. Scientists then asked one more question. Could ground-based telescopes confirm any of what Webb had found, using an entirely separate set of instruments? The European Southern Observatory turned its very large telescope toward 3i Atlas and carried out its own spectrographic analysis. The evidence from that observation lined up with Webb's findings, while also adding something new, clear signs of nitrogen present in the form of cyanide compounds, along with additional confirmation of the comet's unusually high carbon content. The result was a rare moment of full agreement across completely different telescopes, built by different teams, using different instruments, all pointing toward the same underlying conclusion. And what that means is simple but powerful. When multiple independent research groups, using different tools, arrive at the same answer, confidence in that answer grows enormously. This was no longer a single surprising reading from one instrument. It was a confirmed, cross-checked picture of a genuinely unusual object. But scientists weren't finished. They wanted a fuller picture, so they didn't rely on just one instrument. Earlier observations using Webb's NIR spec instrument back in August had already revealed something else strange, unusual water chemistry, that did not match anything typically seen in our solar system, suggesting the comet formed in an environment far colder than anywhere near our own Sun. Hubble contributed too, capturing detailed images as early as July, when the comet was still hundreds of millions of kilometers away, helping researchers track its structure and brightness over time. Ground-based observatories joined the effort as well, with radio and infrared facilities adding further layers of data. Every new instrument gave scientists another piece of the puzzle. Together, these observations built a picture far more detailed than anything ever gathered on an interstellar object before. Now, let's address something you have almost certainly seen online. With an object this old, this strange, and this heavily covered in the media, it did not take long before rumors started to spread. Some corners of the internet suggested that 3i Atlas might not be a natural object at all, that its unusual trajectory and composition could hint at something artificial, even an alien spacecraft. So, let's be clear. Scientists took this question seriously enough to test it directly. They examined its trajectory in detail, and it behaves exactly the way physics predicts a natural comet should behave under the Sun's gravity, showing the subtle course changes you would expect from gas escaping its surface, not controlled propulsion. They examined its structure and glowing coma, entirely consistent with an icy body releasing gas as it warms. And they examined its chemistry, water, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and methane, the same basic building blocks found in natural comets throughout the universe, just in unusual proportions, shaped by an unusual origin. The conclusion, backed by data from multiple independent telescopes and research teams, is that 3I Atlas is a natural comet, an extraordinarily old, extraordinarily well-studied natural comet, but a comet nonetheless. The scientific evidence simply does not support the idea of an artificial origin. What makes this object remarkable is not that it might be something built by another civilization, but that it is a genuine, unaltered piece of another star system, one that formed long before our own sun was born. So what does all of this actually mean for the future of astronomy? This single discovery is already reshaping how scientists think about studying objects from beyond our solar system. For decades, everything we knew about how planets and comets form came from studying material inside our own solar system. Interstellar objects like 3I Atlas offer something entirely different, a direct sample of the raw materials that built planetary systems around other ancient stars. As one NASA scientist put it, we know of only one place in the vast cosmos where chemical ingredients led to life, our own solar system, our own Earth. Studying interstellar visitors like this one is a major step toward understanding just how common or how rare the conditions for life might be elsewhere in the universe, and this may only be the beginning. With upcoming survey telescopes designed to scan huge portions of the sky every few nights, astronomers expect to detect interstellar objects far more frequently in the coming years, possibly several every single year instead of one every few years. Each one adds another piece to the puzzle of how planetary systems form across the galaxy. Future missions are already being discussed that could intercept a future interstellar object directly, sending a spacecraft close enough to capture images or even samples as it passes through, marking humanity's first truly close look at material born around another sun. Take a moment to sit with what this object represents. 3I Atlas began its journey in the ancient regions of our galaxy, around a system that may have formed and died long before our own sun was born. For billions of years, it drifted silently through the darkness between stars, untouched, unseen, carrying frozen chemical secrets from a world we will never visit or identify. Then, for a few brief months, its path crossed a small blue planet, orbiting a young, ordinary star, where curious beings had just developed the tools capable of noticing it. Out of 10 billion years of silent travel, this comet passed through our solar system during the precise sliver of time when humanity possessed telescopes powerful enough to catch it, and enough curiosity to ask what it might be telling us. It will never come this way again. Once it leaves, it is gone forever, back into the emptiness between the stars. Let's bring it all together. 3I Atlas is only the third interstellar object ever confirmed, and by far the most thoroughly studied to date. Evidence from its motion through the galaxy suggests it could be as old as 10 billion years, potentially the oldest comet ever observed, more than twice the age of our own sun. James Webb detected water, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and for the first time ever on an interstellar object, methane hidden beneath its surface and released only after the comet passed its closest point to the sun. Multiple independent telescopes confirm these findings, while directly ruling out any artificial origin. This discovery matters because it gives scientists their clearest window yet into the raw materials that build planetary systems around other stars, and it hints at just how much more we might learn as future missions and future interstellar visitors make their way toward us. If you found this story as incredible as we did, subscribe, because there is a good chance we will not wait long before the next interstellar visitor arrives, and we will be here to break down exactly what scientists discover.